What if I told you that everything you've been taught about money is wrong? Imagine growing up with two father figures, one rich, one poor, each with starkly different views on how to handle money. This is the fascinating premise of Robert Kiyosaki's best-selling book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. In today's video, we'll dive deep into the first chapter of this iconic book, where Kiyosaki introduces us to the concept of the rich dad and the poor dad, and the life-changing lessons he learned from both. Chapter 1. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. In this chapter, Robert Kiyosaki lays the groundwork for the entire book by introducing the two most influential figures in his life, his own father, whom he calls his poor dad, and his best friend's father, whom he refers to as his rich dad. These two men had very different philosophies about money, work, and life, and their contrasting views set the stage for Kiyosaki's financial education. Let's start with the poor dad. Robert's biological father was a highly educated man with a PhD and a stable government job. He believed in the traditional route to success: study hard, get good grades, find a secure job, and work your way up the ladder. He valued job security and a steady paycheck, and he saw his education as the key to a comfortable life. However, despite his impressive credentials, Robert's poor dad often struggled financially. He was constantly stressed about money, and he believed that the lack of it was the root of all his problems. His father's mindset was typical of many middle-class families, prioritizing a good education and a safe job, but often overlooking the importance of financial literacy. Robert recalls how his poor dad would often say things like, "I can't afford it," or "money is the root of all evil." These phrases reflect a scarcity mindset, a belief that money is something elusive, difficult to obtain, and not worth too much attention. Now, let's meet the rich dad. Unlike Robert's biological father, his rich dad didn't have a college degree. In fact, he dropped out of school in the 8th grade. But what he lacked in formal education, he more than made up for in financial wisdom. The rich dad was a successful entrepreneur, owning multiple businesses and investments. His approach to money was the polar opposite of the poor dad. Instead of chasing job security, he believed in building wealth through owning businesses and investing in assets that generate passive income. The rich dad would often say things like, "I can't afford it, but how can I afford it?" This mindset encourages creative thinking and problem-solving, rather than shutting down possibilities with a simple no. He saw money as a tool, something to be managed wisely and multiplied through investments, rather than something to be feared or worshipped. This proactive approach to finances is what set him apart and ultimately led to his wealth. Growing up with these two father figures left Robert Kiyosaki in a unique position. On one hand, he admired his poor dad for his hard work and dedication to his job and education. On the other hand, he couldn't help but notice that his rich dad was the one who was actually financially successful, despite not having a formal education. This contrast led Robert to question the conventional wisdom about money and success. He realized that it wasn't necessarily the most educated or hardest-working people who become rich, but those who understand how money works and how to make it work for them. The first key lesson Robert learned from his rich dad was the importance of financial education. He came to understand that knowing how to manage money and make it grow is far more valuable than just having a high income. His rich dad taught him to focus on building assets, things that put money in your pocket, like investments, businesses, and real estate, rather than liabilities, things that take money out of your pocket, like cars, loans, and credit card debt. This distinction between assets and liabilities is crucial. Most people think that their home is their biggest asset, but as Kiyosaki points out, unless it's generating income, it's actually a liability because it costs money to maintain. The rich dad emphasized the importance of acquiring assets that generate passive income, money that comes in regularly without you having to actively work for it. This is the foundation of financial independence. Another important lesson from Chapter 1 is about the power of mindset. The Poor Dad had a scarcity mindset, believing that money was hard to come by and that one should play it safe by sticking to a stable job. The Rich Dad, however, had an abundance mindset. He believed that opportunities to make money are everywhere if you know where to look and are willing to take calculated risks. The Rich Dad encouraged young Robert to see money-making opportunities where others saw obstacles. This mindset shift is what allowed Robert to start thinking like an entrepreneur and investor, rather than just an employee. It's this entrepreneurial spirit that led him to ultimately achieve financial success. So, what are the takeaways from this first chapter of Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Firstly, financial education is key. It's not just about earning more money, but about learning how to manage and grow what you have. Secondly, focus on building assets and minimizing liabilities. And finally, cultivate a mindset of abundance. Be open to opportunities, think creatively, and don't be afraid to take risks. That's just the beginning of the journey into Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The rest of the book is packed with insights and lessons that can transform your financial future. If you found this summary helpful, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe for more deep dives into financial wisdom, and let us know in the comments, what's one financial lesson you wish you'd learned earlier? Thanks for watching, and remember, it's never too late to start thinking like a rich dad.